I'd like to welcome everyone to the WebEx that we're this today, Keeping Tablets Accessible While Living with ALS. My name is Caroline Zentner, and I am the moderator today. Our speaker today is Amy Rahman. Amy is a licensed speech-language pathologist specializing in augmentative alternative communication, or AAC, for people with ALS, cerebral palsy, aphasia, and neuromuscular diseases. During the past 14 years, Amy has been a member of the multidisciplinary care team at the Forbes North ALS Research and Treatment Center in San Francisco. She is also the director of the ALS Association Golden West Chapter's AAC Equipment Loan Library. In addition to book chapters and articles on alternative communication, Amy created AlphaCore. AlphaCore is a communication software specifically designed for literate adults, like those with ALS, to speed up their communication and reduce the physical effort of constructing sentences. Her website, amyandpals.com, features various expert articles on communication and other care topics for people living with ALS. Now let me turn the program over to Amy. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Caroline. I wanted to welcome everyone and suggest you fasten your seatbelts. We are going to cover a lot of information and look at some exciting new technology. If you're new to the world of assistive technology, just relax and let this presentation open your eyes to possibilities. There's no need to be frantically writing information because a PowerPoint of this presentation is available at the ALS Association Golden West Chapter website. There's also links to each of the videos you'll see and a resource list for all the equipment mentioned, as well as websites that provide additional information on the topics we will cover. So let's get started. There's no doubt tablets have made a splash. People enjoy using them because they're light and portable, and they give us access to many of the things we love: the internet, email, movies, books, newspapers, calendars, and even a way to have a voice again if speech becomes difficult or impossible. Our biggest challenge with ALS and other conditions that interfere with movement is how we continue using these wonderful devices if we are losing or have lost the ability to type, swipe, or tap. The good news is we actually have many ways to use these devices with minimal hand movement, hands-free, and even without any movement. More of these access methods are coming online all the time, and they're getting better. Of course, nothing is perfect, and I'll try to let you know about their limitations as well as their benefits. Let me give you an outline of what we will be looking at today. I'm going to give a brief introduction to text-to-speech apps for those who may not be familiar with them, including a few recommendations of some we use. We'll explore ways to continue to use standard access methods like touchscreen and Bluetooth keyboards, even if hand weakness starts. Next, we'll look at transitioning to a mouse or another USB pointing device like a touchpad. We will also take a look at some alternative ways to click or select, since clicking a mouse is often a problem even before targeting is. Foot and head tracking will then be explored for people with little or no hand movement. Then we'll take a look at scanning on the new iOS 7, which is a vast improvement over the previous voiceover method. After scanning, we'll move into a few technologies for tablets that are just coming online now. One is eye tracking, and the other is brain-computer interface. This refers to using the activity of the brain alone to control a tablet, and yes, this does already exist, and I'll show you a video of us using it for the first time. Learning outcomes for this webinar are that you will be able to describe at least 3 ways to access a tablet hands-free, describe the major access options that Androids and Windows tablets provide, but iPads do not. And finally, you'll know how to find more information on specific topics and stay current on advances in technology. So Text-to-speech apps convert any text, be it a message you have stored ahead of time or something you just typed into the message window. They convert that into synthesized speech. Before we go any further, let's just watch someone using a text-to-speech app on a tablet.
My intelligence and hearing are fine, so you can speak normally to me. Do you have a tissue?
So that you begin with a solid understanding of what you're looking for in an app, I want to point out what the must-haves for literate adults are. The first is an on-screen keyboard. Some apps are built for non-literate users who are using symbols rather than text. Even if a person with ALS can't physically type, they are still literate and need access to a keyboard to express any possible thing they might want to say. Some of you may be chuckling at how obvious this seems, but I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a hospital room and found a patient with ALS supplied only with a communication board containing a picture of a toilet, an image of a nurse, bottles of medicine, and a picture of a TV. So synthesized speech is also important because it allows the tablet to convert anything you type into spoken messages. Non-literate users often have apps with only recorded messages. Finally, you'll want the ability to save messages, and you saw how useful that was in the previous video. These are all pretty basic features, so it's been relatively simple to make text-to-speech apps for people who can type on touchscreens or Bluetooth keyboards. As we begin pushing the realm of alternative access, some of these apps are falling a bit short, and the value of some of the classic applications by Mayer Johnson, Dynavox, Tobii, and other communication device manufacturers are becoming more apparent. So I wanted to provide a list of just a few text-to-speech apps that we commonly use. For each operating system, I wanted to provide you with one no-frills app that's fine for people using a touchscreen or Bluetooth keyboard. But I also wanted to give you some apps that are more optimized for alternative access. I put in parentheses one or two things that make some apps stand out. For example, under iPad, I note that Predictable and Compass have intelligent scanning. The other two less expensive apps will scan, but they weren't designed to do so, and they act a little wonky and do things like skip over your word prediction area. I also wanted to alert you to one thing about the Type It, Read It app for Windows. So to use it, you must turn on built-in text-to-speech function in Windows, and that is located in Ease of Access under Speech Recognition. This is probably not where people who can't speak would look for it, so I just thought I'd mention that. Type It, Read It is also an awkward app for playing stored messages, but I wanted to give you at least one free option for Windows. Now let's look at standard access. Most inexpensive TTS apps have been designed for people who are able to use a touchscreen or Bluetooth keyboard. This is great if you have no hand, shoulder, arm, or neck weakness, which is not typical for most people with ALS. This brings us to the need to find ways to make typing a little easier. Let's look at two solutions if keyboarding is getting a little tricky, but you're not ready to give it up. First of all, there are software modifications that are built into your tablet, typically in the settings under accessibility options or ease of access. You definitely want to check these out. And I've discovered a few that are a little harder to find, so I made some videos on utilizing those. I'll show you those videos in a minute. We will also look at some simple supportive pieces of equipment that can often be made or purchased over the counter. Our first video shows some accessibility tricks to use with the iPad. Let's take a look.
Let's look at a couple of features that make the iPad easier to use for someone using a touch screen who may be having a little hand weakness. As many of you know, within the settings, there is, if you go into General, there is an accessibility category. And if you select that, there's some really nice settings that you can customize font size and other things like that. But there's one that a lot of people don't notice that I found very helpful. A problem that some iPad users have if their fingers become weak is they can't tap the external button that's off the screen that's very important using an iPad. It is your home button. Assistive Touch, if you turn this feature on, gives you an on-screen home button that appears. And with that, you're able to select home and do a variety of things. It's fairly customizable. And you can move it, apparently not everywhere, but around your screen to get it out of your way too. Another feature that not a lot of people know about that the iPad can do is if you go into General again and go into Keyboards, you can make quick shortcut codes that will work on any keyboard you're using that expand into longer phrases. For example, if I type in AR, I have the option of having that expand into Amy Roman, so I don't have to keep typing it and fatiguing my hand. So let's add a new shortcut. First you type out the phrase you want it to say, and it can only be one line. And maybe I'll make a shortcut code for that that's HY. And I'll save that. And now I'm going to go into Assistive Express. Now if I just type HY, how are you pops up, and I hit return.
How are you?
To get that to be selected.
Now let's take a look at some keyboard accessibility ideas for Android.
One of my favorite things about the Android is the ability to customize the size of keyboards. With the Android, I'm able to download a free keyboard. I just go to the Play Store. My favorite keyboard that's very adjustable is the Touchpad X. I download it for free. And then that keyboard will show up with any of the applications where I need to type. I'm just going to go into Type and Speak to give you an example. And this is the TouchPal keyboard, and it has a lot of really wonderful things it can do. First of all, like many of the keyboards, you can type by speaking. And you're able to do that with a little mic there. It also has a standard keyboard that you can use. And you can also put it in swipe mode, which means that instead of tapping the keys, if it's too difficult to lift your finger, you can slide your finger across and type that way. My favorite feature, though, is the ability to resize the keyboard. A lot of people I work with get to the point where they can get to part of the keyboard, but they can't really lift their arm to get to maybe one side of it, and they certainly can't reach up into the message window to do editing, which is usually required by touching the message window. What TouchPal lets you do is you select the little finger icon and you can resize your keyboard. You probably can see a little dotted line, maybe a little hard to see, with some arrows, and this allows you to make your keyboard bigger, which might be nice if you're using a pointing device, or make it smaller if you're using the touch screen. Another nice feature is it has a way to do editing without needing to reach up. So there's a little icon here that looks like a pencil, and if you tap that, you can do all your editing from this screen. So if I want to select the word buy, I would push select, move my cursor over. Now I can copy it and go to the end of my document and paste it. So it really gives you some nice functionality if you have limited ability with your touch screen.
Okay, now let's look at some supportive equipment. Styluses are of great assistance to people who cannot isolate a finger and therefore are hitting the screen with multiple fingers or knuckles. The two styluses I'm showing you are homemade. I've never found a store-bought one that works as well as these. The horizontal stylus shown in this picture is just made from PVC pipe, a tablet stylus or a conductive stylus, and two-sided Velcro and glue. This one is called, I call it the curve molded stylus. It's made by an OT using molding material that he curves around the fingers. Wrist supports are helpful if your hand or wrist are weak, but you have functional movement in your fingers. The over-the-counter wrist support pictured here uses a bendable metal band extending from the palm to the forearm that you can adjust to cock up your wrist at just the right angle for you. Arm supports help with shoulder and bicep weakness. As you see here, there are mobile supports that are stationary, as well as there are arm supports that are stationary as well as mobile versions that allow you to glide your arm over the keyboard. If fingers and arms become too weak to type, I often move clients over to mousing or using one of the many pointing devices that plug in with a USB port. These require something called mouse emulation on the tablet screen. Simply put, that means that a cursor appears and can be directed on the screen. My biggest annoyance with Apple is that it doesn't now and doesn't plan to provide mouse emulation on iPads. So practically all of the access methods we're going to be looking at and the rest of this presentation are not available to iPad users. Scanning is an exception. Let's take a look at a video on mouse emulation on Android and how to set it up.
Pointing devices like a mouse and other USB options pictured here often can allow you to continue using your tablet for years longer than you could use it with the standard access methods like touchscreen or Bluetooth keyboard. Often my clients will transition through a few of these pointing options or make small changes to their positioning and software controls that allow them to maintain access. These simple USB plug-and-play tools can be the key to communication through text-to-speech apps, email, texting, and social networks. USB pointer devices enable you to direct the cursor on an Android or Windows tablet screen with even slight movements of any part of your body that's easiest for you. By always making sure you have the right access method for you, you'll be able to share photos, watch a movie, check a review of a contractor, read the paper, and all the other tablet-based activities you enjoy daily. There are just a few steps to adapting your Android tablet so that you can use it with a mouse or any USB pointer. The first step is finding the right pointer for you. I've got a couple of my favorites on the table that I wanted to show you. A standard mouse works for a lot of people. Another solution that is wonderful is a touchpad. This is great for people who have some shoulder, bicep, or tricep weakness but can move their finger easily or thumb. Trackballs are helpful for some people, especially these are helpful for people who use foot movement. And of course, head trackers. There's the Head Mouse Extreme and the Tracker Pro for people who it's easier for them to move their head than their arm or foot for tracking. Now you've noticed that all of these have USB ports, and most tablets don't. Most tablets have other kinds of ports. So we need to get an adapter that will accept a USB cable. These are easy to find and they're very inexpensive. What you want to do is go online and do a search for USB adapter and then put in the name of your particular tablet device. So in this case I searched for Samsung Galaxy Tab USB adapter. Another term they use a lot is OTG, on the go. So if you see that, that's what you're looking for also. So it's very simple. You just plug your USB cable into the adapter, and typically the adapter goes into the charger port, and immediately you get a little notice that says mouse connected. So you'll see that it's going to work. And then when you start moving the mouse, a little cursor appears. And this allows me to go and type without raising my arm.
Hi.
Now I highly recommend this next step. We're going to adjust the cursor speed to the fastest speed at which we're able to accurately target. Over time, this really reduces the burden on whichever muscle group you're using to move the cursor. So to do this, we'll close this, go to the home page. Now we're going to go into settings, and you want to choose language and input. Within language and input at the bottom, there is a function for pointer speed. Open that up, and there's a little dial here that's probably hard to see, but it's got, at this end it's the slowest cursor speed, the least responsive, and over here it's the highest. And you'll want to play with this and find the right speed for you. This can make all the difference. Positioning is another key element to success and longevity with any of the access devices you're seeing today. Proper limb support and the choice of the right access method will prevent any needless movements or the unnecessary use of additional muscles to hover over or reach for a mouse or switch. Since typing on a touchscreen requires that you thrust your head forward to look down at it, I suggest that even people who can use a touchscreen out in the community give their neck and shoulders a break when they're home. Readily available tablet stands raise your tablet to eye level if you're seated in an easy chair or a wheelchair, at the living room table, or in bed. A small beanbag lap tray available at any office supply store works well as a stable surface for a mouse, touchpad, joystick, or keyboard. My final recommendation, if you are experiencing any limb weakness, is to work with an occupational therapist, PT, assistive technology specialist, or a speech therapist with training in augmentative communication. Many can provide you with trials of the tools you have seen in this video, saving you time, money, muscle fatigue, and frustration. Their experience allows them to think of dozens of important modifications that can vastly improve access and ease transitions.
Frequently, people lose the ability to click a mouse while the mouse is still functioning as a great method for targeting for them. Instead of abandoning the entire option, we can find alternative ways to click. One method is called dwell select. It is a special feature built into very few TTS apps at this point. With dwell select, you simply hover the cursor over the item you want to select for a set amount of time, and the item is selected. Switch selection is much like clicking a mouse, but you get to choose what part of your body you will use to activate the switch. Every person uses a unique switch setup, so I thought it might be interesting for you to take a look at some examples. One thing to note is that switches are multifunctional. So they can click a mouse, they can turn on a laser pointer, or as you'll see in some of these videos, they can activate a call chime.
It's fast and easy for someone to adjust, and that's a good setup. Oh, good. Good, good. Nice.
I'm telling you, it's good.
Maybe even a... That's great. Okay, there's the call time. Good. Good. Try a double click. Good. Find a spot for Ozzy where he can stay off the switch when he wants to stay off it, but also his head can push up against it when he wants to activate a switch. And can you show me, can you hit that switch? Perfect.
After watching this video, you may be wondering, how do I attach a typical switch with a 1/8-inch mono plug into a mouse or a tablet? And here are a few options. You can use a mouse or pointing device that is specially adapted to have a switch port, or you can get a USB switch adapter. There's one here called the Swifty that I like to use. If hands and arms are getting too weak for a mouse pointer, you may want to consider using foot or head movement. The most important element to using a trackball with the foot is proper foot support. Here's a video and some pictures of a supportive foot tracker setup.
A big trackball can be a great option for someone who has good foot control still. The problem most people face is they don't build up any support around the trackball. And then two things can happen. If the person's not very strong, their foot just slips over to the side without any support and they just keep rolling off the trackball. Or if they're pretty strong, they'll hover and use a lot of muscles in their legs to keep that trackball, to keep their foot above the trackball and not falling off. So all that you need to do is build a basic support. Here are two. One's a little fancier. This one is just a box with a hole cut in it that the trackball goes in. There's a little hole in it for the cord. And then when it closes, the foot can rest on the board so that it's supported. And here's a quick little version of this that I made with just a box and another box. It took about 5 minutes with a razor, and I just cut a hole in one box, put the trackball in, and put another box under it. I use this one for demos, but before someone carves one for you, this is a good option.
I wanted to show you this excellent example of a portable version of a foot tracker support. Here's a detailed picture of this foot tracker plate. So let's take a look at it. There is a little area for the switch that my friend is able to use for clicking. There is a wedge that allows you to slide the plate on and off the wheelchair footrest. You can see there's a trackball in the plate, and I also wanted to mention that the person uses grippy bottom socks to get some traction while they're using their trackball, but keep their feet warm at the same time. Now let's take a look at a video of someone who's just using head movement to type. Lorene is using dwell as her selection method since she found hitting a switch to be too fatiguing.
This is Lorene and Tony. Lorene has been using a Bluetooth keyboard with an iPad, and now she's looking to give her arm a break and use a head mouse. So we've got her set up with an Android device. The head mouse is attached, and she's able to type by moving her head just a bit. As you can see, there's a little reflective dot on her glasses that we placed there, and the sensor reads where that reflective dot is and allows her to type on her screen. She's using the app Predictable because it has Dwell Select.
The house is messy.
Is that going to be a common message? So we'll have to save that one.
Lorene used this system beautifully, as you can see, but she didn't ultimately select a tablet. Tablets still present limitations that made her decide to get an insurance-covered speech-generating device instead. Dwell Select does not extend to the desktop on the tablet, while the Predictable app let Lorene choose items by pausing the cursor over them. When she left the app and wanted to use other apps on her tablet, she had no way to click on anything. Now, I did want to mention some news hot off the press that T-Box, the company that makes the Predictable app, recognized this need and is going to be very soon releasing something called Mouse Track. It's an app that will allow for dwell selection on the entire Android device. Tobii also has built this into their software, so you will see when you look at their eye tracking on a Windows tablet. Another challenge can be swiping and scrolling with alternative access methods. App designers must build in ways to allow this, And the devil really is in the detail. At first glance, the new inexpensive and free apps on the market are great, but as we have worked with them with various access methods, we can see that they have a lot of catching up to do. At this point, Toby, T-Box, and Dynavox have developed apps that do address many alternative access needs. They know what they are doing due to their decades of experience providing accessibility to their customers and working hard to create apps and programs that fill the needs of people with ALS, and from the start of the disease to the point where they may require eye tracking, scanning, or brain-computer interface. So the manufacturers also get the concept that consumers are interested now in just buying their apps and purchasing the hardware off the shelves. And they're offering their apps as standalone, which makes me very happy because I think the more options we have, the better. Scanning is a great option, though one I rarely use for my clients. When given trials of scanning and eye tracking, those who can do eye tracking usually pick eye tracking. Scanning requires the ability to activate a switch to select options that are presented sequentially on the screen. There are different types of scanning, but for people with muscle weakness, I recommend typically single switch scanning, single switch automatic scanning, in which the software automatically scans through all the possible things you might want to select on the screen by putting a highlighted box around each option. So let's just take a look at a video of how this works.
Scanning, a way to type for people with very limited movement. In order to scan, you must have at least one small but reliable movement to activate your switch. These are just a few examples of the way people use different parts of their bodies with different switches. Now we're going to look at how these switches can be used to type on a tablet. When single switch automatic scanning is used, different selectable parts of your tablet will appear to be highlighted. Here you can see the top box highlighted in yellow. In order to begin scanning, you hit your switch and your tablet will scroll through your options.
I'm going to do tissue.
Scanning frequently groups items to speed you up. Once you select the group, then scanning will provide you with the items within the group to select.
The newest version of the iPad operating system includes the controls you need for scanning, including scanning rate, number of loops to scan through if you don't make a selection, and many more items. AbleNet has hit the ball out of the park with their tutorial videos on how to set up scanning in the iPad. It's clear and detailed. I chose not to provide a detailed explanation of the settings because they nailed it. AbleNet also has a wonderful missing users guide to iOS scanning. It's actually called the Missing Users Guide. And both of these resources make it very simple to set up scanning. And basically, VoiceOver can now be turned off. Since VoiceOver was never optimized for scanning, this is a huge improvement. You may be wondering, how do I attach a switch to my tablet? So let's look at that. And let me say again, you don't need to scribble this information down frantically. This is an important slide with lots of information, and just download the PowerPoint. So let's first look at the iPad. With an iPad, you can only use a Bluetooth wireless connection. And there are basically two options. The first option is you can use a Bluetooth wireless switch, and I've listed one here, the AbleNet Bluetooth. And another option is you can use a Bluetooth interface that lets you plug in any switch. And RJ Cooper has one, and I believe Enabling Devices also has one they offer. And there are actually 3 more options for switch to have switch access with an iPad. So you can set the iPad so that it uses the whole screen as a switch, and that means you can tap anywhere. Since you already know my opinion on having your screen raised, I don't need to explain why this isn't my favorite method for people with muscle weakness, but it is a nice way to try out the option and see how it works. So you can turn it onto the entire screen, functions as your switch. Another option is to use the front-facing camera to detect a head turn, which acts as our switch. I like the intent of Apple on this one, but the head turn that's required is more of a head jerk, and after doing it a few times, I felt like I needed a neck brace. So again, cool idea, but not great for us. There's one last option, which is you can use the keyboard Bluetooth that you may already have and just hit a key on the keyboard, and again, have your tablet up nice and high so that you can see it easily and have the keyboard in your lap. With Windows tablets often have a USB port, so you can use a USB to switch adapter. And you can see I've put the Swifty there. Also, you can use, like I mentioned, any switch-adapted mouse as your interface. With Androids, as you saw in the video earlier, they require an adapter to give them a USB port, and then you just use the Swifty or any USB adapted device to connect your switch to an Android. And at this point, the only app that on Android I'm using for scanning is Predictable. Now let's go on to eye tracking. While eye tracking has been around for a long time, it's just become much more portable. So let's take a look at our first experience with it at the Forbes Norris Center. You will see how a sensor the size of a large power bar detects eye movement and controls your tablet.
Eye tracking on a tablet computer. Eye trackers allow you to control your computer with only eye movements. Okay, so I've got the Tobii PCI, and I'm going to adjust the mounting. Kevin, our Tobii rep, came by the Norris Center to let me try out Tobii's new PCI. The PCI is an eye tracker that you can connect to your Windows tablet, laptop, or desktop via USB port. The tablet then snaps into the tablet bracket, and the PCI slides into the holder at the bottom of the bracket.
Okay, so the gaze interaction toolbar is designed to give you all of the commands that you would need for Windows control all into the toolbar on the side. What that allows you to do is use the rest of the screen to read or watch a movie without your eyes interacting with the system. So before you do anything, you must choose an option on the right-hand side or the left, depending on where the toolbar is, to perform an action, a left click, a right click, or whatnot.
Okay, so I want to open Notepad.
So what you're going to do is you're going to left click and look at Notepad. Okay, what we're going to do now is maximize the window. So left click and choose the maximize option. Perfect.
Nice.
Okay. Now with your cursor placed, we're going to choose the keyboard. Okay. And start typing. Okay. We're going to have to get rid of this window here. So let's left click on the application.
Oh.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Keyboard. And then we can start typing. One of the cool things about the keyboard is you can scroll through the keyboard to get other functions. So if you scroll to the right here, You get your numbers and your punctuation marks. Keep scrolling. You get your function keys and some other Windows-based functions. And one more time, and you get your fun emoticons, so your smiley faces and some other symbols. So you have access to a full keyboard, all with your eyes. Perfect.
Okay, what about communication?
So let's
Software.
double click on Tobii Communicator. So double click option, and then Tobii Communicator right at the top.
That's
And
pretty
you're going to
fast.
choose Sono Key.
Whoops.
It's the very middle of the screen there. There you go. And then click OK. So what you'll notice within the Communicator software is you're back to a typical dwell where you have the red circle, and we can adjust the speed of that. So look at the back button and then start page. And let's go to the ABC. And let's try to write a phrase. Let's try great again. So even though the tablet is a 10-inch screen, the accuracy of the eye control is really, really powerful. And then your speak button is
Great.
I lost a few years. Okay, good.
So pausing is available as well too. So
Oh, that would be helpful in this
so
one.
Glance down.
Oh, right. The old pause system where you just look down at the bottom.
There you go.
You kind of look at the camera and then it will
Exactly.
pause it. Okay.
And then the same
I can
function
just
for
relax
eyes.
now and look.
Okay.
So one thing everyone wants to do is use the internet. So I'm going to try to do that with my eyes now. So let's see, I've got to get up to my toolbar, but I've got to click it. So I'm going to do a single click, got it. Now I need to bring up my keyboard, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to do Google. Ooh. And then can I choose it up there? I
Okay.
guess I'd have to
So
do
left click.
left
and the
click.
last one.
and okay, and left click and choose Google. Left click.
It's
Oh,
left.
I'm in. Okay. Now I've got my cursor there. Now I want to type with a keyboard, and I'm going to type cats. Okay, and now I'm going to click and search. Okay, so now what I want to open one of these and scroll around in it, because that's always hard. Scrolling can be tricky. So maybe Wikipedia. That takes some scrolling. Oh.
You're getting
I've got an
fast.
African wildcat. Now I'm going to scroll down, so I'm going to use this little scroll bar. I've activated that. I look into the middle, and then I look down slowly. Well, this feels pretty good. Okay, now I want to go up to the top and down fast. I look down fast. Got it. Okay. That's pretty good. I'm going to go up to the top again and look up. Great. Wonderful. Thank you. That was pretty easy.
Okay, now on to brain computer interface. This technology uses the activity of your brain to directly control your computer and bypasses the requirement of any motor abilities. This is an exciting new area that is developing quickly. While I think that this system named brain control that you will see today is the only BCI system available for tablets, I do want to note that there are many different and successful methods being researched for achieving a brain-computer interface. The one that we'll see today uses electrodes placed on the skull and uses the signals it detects as a switch. Another method that has seemed very promising to me is called P300. If you want to research more brain-computer interface, definitely check out P300 also. Okay, so let's watch this final video.
At the Forbes Norris Center, we recently tried out a new brain-computer interface that's going to become available on tablets within the next 6 months. All the equipment is pictured here. It consists of a wireless neuro headset and a Windows tablet computer with brain control software. It utilizes scanning, and when the electrodes detect a more active brain state, it acts as a switch. We were impressed by its portability, its ease of setup, and its functionality. So I think the best way to show that to you is just to show you our initial encounter with it.
Move my hair. It's not a big deal.
We've got more green coming online. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
Is that? Do you think that's good enough?
Let's try.
We'll try it.
This. Yeah.
So
Okay, so you want to train for 8 seconds each. This is going to be the training of the relaxed state.
So just push train. Go. Alright, accept. And then push. Activate the cube for give the sense of pushing. Ready? Alright. Yes. Now let's go back to the application. And we can try it again.
So you're going to try to select no.
So maybe we can try to show lower.
Woo!
How are you? How are you?
Good job. Do you want to try I'm not well?
Alright.
That's it. Oops.
I'm fine. I'm not well. I'm not well.
Good job. Now let me share with you a few more of the important details we learned about brain control. It is available only on Windows tablets. The developers are recommending 4 one-hour training sessions. Experienced users typically can set their scanning rate for 2 to 3 seconds per location. New users require a longer sustained push setting in order to avoid false activations, but this setting's typically lowered to about 1 to 1.5 seconds when they have more control. We're expecting this device in the US market in early 2014, and the complete package costs about $10,000, and they are looking into insurance coverage.
Okay, well, I hope I was able to provide some material that may be helpful or ideas that sparked your imagination. I'm going to turn the program over to Caroline now for questions and additional resources.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much. We're going to shift gears now, and we will take your questions in just a moment. We've been taking your questions all along, so we have them set. We're going to have a few. Amy's going to answer about 4 or 5 of them for sure. Also, very quickly, we will have the videos, the WebEx, the PowerPoint. Everything is going to go up in about within 24 hours onto the ALS Golden West chapter website, and also we will be doing a transcript of all of the materials as well. So if you had sound problems, thank you so much for your patience. Everything, like I said, will be posted so you can view it again. So let's take some questions for Amy. Okay, question number 1. We have a question about it says, about scanning with iOS 7.1, having run into a problem where if I misselect a row, I will be trapped in that row with no way to get out and select the row that I wanted. Is there a fix for that yet?
What a great question. Yes. I ran into this one, and honestly, this is one of the problems with this system, and there is a fix. Initially, I had set my scanning so that it wouldn't loop a second time. And you absolutely must have it at least have set to in your scan settings on the iOS. You just need to set it to at least go through, repeat 2 times. What happens is between the first and the second, you'll get a little kind of serrated looking highlight. It'll look like a little serrated knife. At that moment, you can get yourself out of that group, and you have to click at that moment. Otherwise, if you just have a single loop, you never get that time to escape from the group you've selected, and then you'll just keep being put into that group over and over again, which is incredibly frustrating. Excellent question.
Thank you, Amy. The next question is thoughts about Bluetooth switches for iPads.
Okay, well, I noticed somebody, I think it was Annette, brought up the fact that there's another option for the iPad switch, and that's just using a Bluetooth keyboard. So I imagine you can hit the space bar or something like that. So that was a thing that I hadn't put up. But there's right now, the Bluetooth is a Bluetooth switch that works very well. And then there's also just a Bluetooth interface from RJ Cooper that that'll send, it's a little box, and it sends the signal, the Bluetooth signal, to the iPad, and all you have to do is plug any switch that works for you into the switch adapters in that box. So I'm not sure if that's what you meant by thoughts on Bluetooth switches, but I think they work pretty well. They're Bluetooth.
Thank you. Another question is, just curious, with all the accessibility options for tablets now, what are the benefits of using a device such as a Dynavox or Tobii, besides reimbursement perhaps? Also, are environmental controls available on tablets?
Okay, so let's see. Advantages. You know, there are advantages to using the insurance-funded speech-generating devices. One of the big ones is the tech support. Frankly, if you use any of the available apps that aren't associated with one of the manufacturers, there really is no tech support. I guess that would be one of the major reasons. Also, there's just so much better developed language pages, which matters a lot if you're working with, maybe aphasics or people with autism. So anyway, there are just, I feel like they've put a lot more, obviously, research into not only the language but also the assistive technology. So there are advantages without a doubt, and there's probably even a few more. It's really nice to be able to call for tech support. I mean, that is a huge part of the expense of those devices, and why insurance does pay a lot of money for them is because they're so in there, and that is a nice fact. I'm a huge fan of the tablets, but there's no way of getting around that.
Okay, another question kind of connected with that is, do you have a suggestion for the easiest iOS 7 settings to start playing with the iPad, scanning just a little bit?
Oh, the first thing I would do would be to go to AbleNet, watch that video on single switch scanning. And you can play with it. If you have a Bluetooth keyboard, you could, without purchasing anything extra, you could start playing with it a little bit with the Bluetooth keyboard, or you could use your whole tablet. You can set it so that your whole tablet will function as your switch. So you don't need to purchase anything extra to start trying scanning out and just seeing what it's like. And for kicks, you could try the head, I don't remember what it's called, the head movement. I call it the head jerk, and see if you can even activate that. It takes a lot of work.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. It was just wonderful. Please feel free to contact us with questions through email after the videos. If you've had a chance to see them again, I want to do a special thank you to our sponsors as well, the Golden West chapter, for sponsoring this WebEx and all of the materials. It's a wonderful organization, and we very much enjoy our partnership with them. And also the California Communication Access Foundation has provided generous grant funds for our communication lending library. So thank you again. Have a nice day.